they love me, all my people with me, they love me all.
Throughout history, there were some fearsome figures, known for their lunatic behavior and their thirst for blood. Those people are called dictators. People like Joseph Stalin, Augusto Pinochet, or Adolf Hitler, the one who plunged the whole world into the verge of annihilation. But typically these people are despised by their nation. The question is, there's one particular nation who badly wants their dictator back. In the north of Africa, there is a country called Libya. This country is the fourth biggest country in the whole Africa. So as you may know, they had a dictator called Muammar Gaddafi, who liberated the country, in fact. But Muammar Gaddafi was a ruthless dictator. How could their nation miss him? In today's video, we're gonna find out. It's 1911. Libya is occupied and colonized by Italian forces, alongside British forces, of course. You know how Libya is rich with oil. So, somewhere in a village, our little Gaddafi was born. I mean, their parents were nomads. They were basically living in tents. And this little Gaddafi was born in sheer poverty. Like, they didn't have much to eat, or they didn't really having a good time. Lucky for Gaddafi, his father envisioned him to be a literate man, probably a scientist one day. So he did his best to afford him to go to closest town to their village called Sepha, so he can continue his education. At least he can be educated. Gaddafi did his best, because his father was, to be honest, he was a poor guy. He couldn't afford him fully with his tripping to that place called Sepha, or educating and stuff, you know. So Gaddafi had to sleep at mosque. I mean, the place he had to crash was mosque, literally. So he had no place to crash, he had no place to do his homework. Mosque was all he had, the shelter of his own. With all difficulties, Gaddafi managed to graduate from high school. After high school, he was so intrigued by history. He started to read about different revolutions all around the world, all throughout history, like French Revolution, for example. He was intrigued by historical figures such as, for example, Abraham Lincoln. So these studying convinced him that I have to go to the college and study history. He did go to college, he did study history, but after a short while he decided that I have to quit studying. I'm not made up for this somehow. So once he's done with studying at college, honestly speaking, he said, right now my father cannot afford me anymore. So I have one option left. The option is to join the military. As a result, he joined the Royal Academy, military, of course, Royal Academy of Libya. Right now he's there. I can tell you that he had a bone of contention with his officers because his commanders and officers were mostly British people, and he saw those British people as tyrants. I mean, those people who have occupied their country. So with all these problems and difficulties, yet he managed to upgrade and promote himself to lieutenant. After 7 years, right now he's Lieutenant Muammar Gaddafi. But he did one thing under the table during these 7 years. During these 7 years, he was forming a group of rebellious officers, the ones who were against the corrupted King Idris. But the thing is, why was he doing such a treachery plan in disguise? To answer this, I should first introduce you to this guy, Gamal Abdel Nasser. Now, Nasser was an Egyptian commander who took power in Egypt with a coup without a single drop of the bloodshed. You know, for people of Egypt, Gamal was a hero, but this wasn't really confined to Egypt. Soon, Gamal Abdel Nasser turned into a hero for all Arab nations. a liberator who is there to liberate Arab people from their ruthless leaders. So in fact, Gaddafi was idolizing Nasser ever since he was a teenager. One day, the corrupted King Idris decided to go to Turkey in order to be treated. Gaddafi said this is the best time to act. So, he started a coup. At the age of 27, he started a coup. A coup without bloodshed, just like Gamal Abdel Nasser. This trip of Idris outside the borders of Libya was his last trip. He could never return to Libya again. You know, people of Libya were so sick of their King Idris that they opened the door, rolled out the red carpet for Gaddafi. So he entered and he took power. Believe it or not, the first years of his ruling and dominance over Libya was the best years for Libya. He started to nationalize the oil industry. He started to give free education to people, free healthcare. He started to build numerous houses for Libyan people. I mean, Libya was finally blooming. Everything was going great for Libya. People of Libya was tasting peace and prosperity. Everything was great until September 28th, 1970. Remember this time. This is where everything started to fall apart. At this date, Gamal Abdel Nasser died due to heart attack. So the leader of the Arab world is gone, unfortunately. So Gaddafi said, all right, now the Arab world is without a leader. I should step in. I should be the next leader of the Arab world. He gave himself every single right to be the next leader of the Arab world because he's been idolizing Nasser since he was probably a teenager. So he says there's no other alternatives than me to be the next leader of the Arab world. So he first had to have a plan. His plan was, the main thing that you can do at those times, you are going to give speeches against Israel. You're going to give speeches against the Western civilization, the number one enemy at that time for the Arab world. But his speeches, his stuff wouldn't go noticed by the leaders of the rest of the leaders of the Arab world. So he said, all right, I should prove myself. I should draw some attention. So he said, in order to do that, I have to go beyond the borders of Libya. He started having some meetings with Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela at that time was considered an enemy of the United States and also the Great Britain. So the Western civilization really didn't like this alliance with Gaddafi and Nelson Mandela. Aside from that, he had one doom idea nurtured in his mind, I have to be the one who's going to support terrorism all around the world. Whoever is fighting on this planet against the Western civilization, against the Israeli thoughts and stuff, I have to sponsor them. So soon he turned out to be the number one sponsor of insurgents in the world. From Philippines to South America, Germany, and soon all over Europe. Every single terrorist activity has been funded and sponsored by Muammar Gaddafi. He was doing it all to be noticed by the leaders of the Arab world, but instead, he's now under the radar of the United States as the number one sponsor of terrorism in the world. This is his first failure. Now, he's failed in order to attract the attention of the leaders of the Arab world. He said, all right, I couldn't just prove myself with my power. Let's show them my wisdom. He started to write a book. He spent so much time writing the book. And to be honest, the base of the book, the main ideology of the book was introducing new lifestyle based on Islamic rules, which is against the capitalism and the new world order that the America is imposing on the world. And he called it the Green Book. Honestly speaking, the Green Book was a complete farce. Nobody took it serious. It was more funny than to be informative. people didn't like it a lot. For example, in his book, he said that we have to give chickens to the people of Libya. So he did actually give chickens to the people of Libya. He provided cages with a chicken in it, and they told people that you should raise this chicken. When it's fully grown, you can kill it and eat it. And people did that, but afterwards they put newspapers in those cages. Like, just imagine how funny this book is. And he actually forced everyone, every school, every academic institution in Libya to teach this book to the children. He used to put a lot of trust into this book. And this book, again, went unnoticed by the leaders of the Arab world. And I can say even by the people of Libya. This was his second failure. Let me tell you a fun fact about Gaddafi. Once he met Nelson Mandela gave him a title. He named him Brotherly Leader. It was genius, to be honest, because it's not only a leader, but also your brother. So Nelson Mandela wanted to forge a very strong alliance with Gaddafi, that he even named one of his grandson Gaddafi. You can search it on the internet, it's available. One of the grandson of Nelson Mandela is named Gaddafi, honestly speaking. It's so fun. But anyway, let's get back to the story. So, right now, Gaddafi's second attempt on being the leader of the Arab world has failed. One thing happened in particular. On March 28, 1986, a US Navy was maneuvering in the Gulf of Sidra. Now, for those of you who are not aware, Gulf of Sidra is somewhere in the north of Libya. So, honestly speaking, the US Navy was doing some regular training in international waters. They were not really bothering anyone. But this time, there was something different. This time, the leader of Libya is Gaddafi, and he is doing whatever it takes to gain the approval of the leaders of the Arab world. He told to himself that, all right, right now I couldn't prove my wisdom. I couldn't I couldn't gain my approval by funding terrorism and going against Israel. Now's the time to fight against the United States, the devil in the vest itself. He made one of his most foolish decisions ever. He launched 6 rockets toward that US Navy. Luckily for the United States, they were all intercepted by that Navy itself. But the thing is, United States wanted retaliation, so instantly they started to attack the missiles installations that Libya started to launch those missiles. Alright, the confliction here is now somehow ended, but Gaddafi didn't want this to end. It is now the time of war. Now, for obvious reasons, Gaddafi is not capable of direct confrontation with the United States, so he said, I'm gonna play this war nasty. Tomorrow, the West Berlin Embassy got a fax from the Libya East Berlin Embassy. The fax contained this message. You'll be happy when you see the headlines tomorrow. At first, it wasn't taken seriously, but tomorrow, at 11 p.m., everyone stepped in to a club. The club is the hangout of American soldiers in West Berlin. At 1:45, the club exploded by a handbag that woman put in there. 2 Americans died, leaving a massacre behind. This is a direct declaration of war against the United States from Libya.
This mad dog of the Middle East has a goal of a world revolution.
2 Americans died in that attack, and the next day the United States wanted retaliation, so they conducted an operation targeting directly Gaddafi's house. So in that operation, Gaddafi managed to flee, but unfortunately his adopted daughter couldn't really run away, so she died. At least he claimed that she died. But honestly speaking, it is so funny for me. How could Gaddafi himself flee and put his daughter in the harm's way? It's not logical. Honestly speaking, it's not. By the year 2011, the Telegraph shed light on this mystery. The Telegraph wrote an article and claimed that Hana Gaddafi is supposed to be alive. So why did Gaddafi claim that his daughter is dead? What's the reason behind this? It's obvious that he said she is dead because she has some kind of an excuse to keep fighting against the devil in the West. If you think things are twisted already, you might have another thing coming. It was a peaceful night in Frankfurt. Around 260 people were planning to move to the US on a flight called Pan Flight 103. They had a stopover in London. After a short break, they took off to New York for another stopover. And after about 1 hour, somewhere around Scotland, suddenly the plane vanished from the radar. 270 people were murdered. Among these people were babies, old women, old men, innocent civilians. Now I know why he was called Mad Dog of the Middle East by Reagan. At first, Gaddafi tried to deny the accusation, say I wasn't involved at all. So this was at time the biggest investigation case for FBI. From 19 different nations, people were involved to investigate about the roots of this terrorist attack. And after 4 years of investigation, they realized that it was Gaddafi behind this. I mean, there were numerous scenarios, like some people say it was Iran, some people say it was this and that, but after 4 years, it turned out it is Libya and Gaddafi. Now, they caught Gaddafi's red-handed. So, right now, the whole world is expecting something severe for Gaddafi. As a result, the United Nations imposed the crippling sanctions against Libya. But honestly speaking, this pressure is on Libyan people directly more than Gaddafi. Poor Libyan people. I still don't understand how can Libyan people miss such dictator. Let's figure out. So this isolation led Gaddafi sink deeper into madness. At first step, he changed his clothing. Gaddafi used to wear military uniform, but step by step he changed into African Libyan attire, you know. He has also been through numerous plastic surgeries. He wanted to look good, you know. One particular and prominent thing he has done during this time was an army of female bodyguard called the Amazonian. It's funny, but because you may think that as a bodyguard you have to be pretty much well in martial arts, combat artist, pretty much strong, you know, this is what you expect of a bodyguard. But the requirement for Amazonian to be an Amazonian, in fact, was soft, long hair, tall height, beautiful eyes. Gaddafi claimed that all these female bodyguards are virgins, which is even makes it more hilarious, to be honest. But to put it in a short way, the philosophy behind this Amazonian was he believed that Libyan men do not harm Libyan women. So if I use those women as my bodyguard, put them in harm's way, I will not be like harmed, or I'm not going to be hurt by other assassins because they're first, then this is me, which is just an excuse. On top of that, he wanted to show that he's caring about women more than a regular dictator in the world. There's one heartbreaking story, but it's good to know that the brotherly leader used to go to different schools in Libya, visiting little girls as young as 10 sometimes. And then he said, I want that girl. All right. The girl really thought that this is a private invitation, a private visit with the brotherly leader, with the supreme leader of Libya. But little do they know that the brotherly leader is expecting them naked in his private property. I mean, those girls, they were trying to dress to impress. This was a private visit, but you know the rest of their story. Honestly speaking, sex is a taboo topic in Islamic culture, in Islamic countries. People do not really talk it like probably in a Western civilization do. So these girls could not really speak a word of this to anyone, because first off, sex was a taboo topic to speak about. Next thing is, this is supreme leader who's doing this wrong act. So their family is in danger, their lives in danger. So honestly speaking, this is a very saddening story, but it is true. The leaders of the Arab world could not tolerate these acts anymore. So they didn't really want Gaddafi to talk on their behalf. Gaddafi said, all right, if you guys are not accepting me, I'm not going to call myself an Arab anymore. I'm an African. Instead of being the leader of the Arab world, I'm going to be the king of the kings of Africa. He did some attempts. He tried to talk to the numerous kings in the Africa, but it was, again, another failure. It's said that somewhere that in one of these meetings, Gaddafi was about to be decapitated by one of these African kings. So it is another failure for Gaddafi. Everything was going extremely bad for Libya. Sanctions, a lunatic leader, you know the rest of the story. Until September 11th, 2001. For many, 9/11 is a poignant story, but for Gaddafi, it was a time to flip the card and to lift the UN sanctions. Many said he saw this as an opportunity to grow and to get out of his shell, but I believe differently. I think that Gaddafi was afraid. You may ask why. At that time, it was the era of dominance for Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was a fearsome group all over the Arabic countries and Middle East particularly. So Al-Qaeda was also rising in Libya, and Gaddafi was so terrified of this. He couldn't stand a chance against Al-Qaeda because these guys were even brutal than Gaddafi himself. As a result, he said, Al-Qaeda has one big enemy right now, and that enemy is the United States. So let's shake hands with United States. I can lift these goddamn sanctions. I can provide a better life for people, and I have a common enemy with my own enemy. So he tried to comply with the West, and in fact condemned 9/11. He even extended his hand of support to the victims of 9/11 and said, I'm going to donate blood even if you want me. These things were so surprising to see from a person, a mad dog of the Middle East, as Reagan once said. So he was acting suspicious. But the United States said, right now you want to befriend with us, we're going to agree to that, all right? So no worries. This reconciliation with Gaddafi and the Western civilization, it has numerous merits for Libyan people, because after 40 years, almost after 40 years, they were once again tasting peace and prosperity. The Libya was blooming. The economy was improving. The situation of life exactly was improving. Everything was going perfectly fine. But it is the calm before the storm. So soon, something happened in the Arab world that it's called the Arab Spring. So to put it in a nutshell, I can tell you that a young man set himself on fire in front of the governor's office in Tunisia. This started a series of revolutionary acts in the whole Arab countries. These revolutionary acts were targeting their corrupted leaders. They want their old corrupted leaders to be substituted with some better people. As a result, Libya was included in this Arabic movement. So in the beginning, people of Libya were protesting, like very peacefully. But soon Gaddafi called them militia. If you look at one of the Gaddafi's, his son, the Gaddafi's son is in one of his interviews said that called these people militia. But you guys may be aware that militia means people armed with heavy weaponries, for example. You cannot call regular civilians militia. So what's the problem?
What we've seen in the streets is not protesters, but armed militias.
Gaddafi's son is not wrong. People of Libya are armed, but how exactly did they have access to military weapons? In order to know the answer, take a look at this guy. This is Nicolas Sarkozy. He used to be the elected president. At that time, Gaddafi was trying to reconcile with the world. And he happened to be one of the closest friends of Gaddafi. Exactly at that time, Gaddafi tried to again be friend with the world. Gaddafi's son claimed that they also donated $16 million to Sarkozy in order to help him win the election.
Firstly, Sarkozy must repay Libya the money he took for his election campaign.
Gaddafi was also invited to Sarkozy's inauguration ceremony. After this invitation, French people and French officials started to blame their president for their corrupted behavior. They said, "You are not a good president, your actions are corrupted." So after this, Sarkozy tried to prove differently, and in order to balance the situation, he tried to smuggle weapons to Libya by the help of the Great Britain. But the question is, Sarkozy and the Great Britain, these two people were really looking forward to help Libyan people by this act? Or something else was involved? I believe they wanted the Libya's oil, because that country is rich with oil, as I mentioned earlier. So this wrong decision is still tormenting the people of Libya, even today that we are shooting this video. You may wonder why. Let me tell you the rest of the story. So right now, Gaddafi is dealing with armed civilian known as the Libyan opposition group. On March 24th, 2011, NATO enforced a no-fly zone over the Libya.
NATO allies have now decided to enforce the no-fly zone over Libya.
All right, his old friend America is now against Gaddafi, so this is a direct declaration of war against the brotherly leader. So, 7 months, Gaddafi and the opposition groups were fighting, with the help of NATO, of course. They were liberating cities after cities, and in fact, Gaddafi was getting cornered. There was only one city left that the opposition group of Libya had to liberate it. So NATO just exposed the Gaddafi's location to the leaders of opposition. So they were going to capture Gaddafi and probably execute him. Unfortunately, the greatest dictator of the time was getting cornered in this picture, as you see, a sewage pipe. This is the last station for the brotherly leader. Now, there are numerous scenarios depicting Gaddafi's death, but for sure he was first beaten to death, then he was shot in the head. The dictator is now dead. The people of Libya were over the moon. They were celebrating. It was their victory. They are finally liberated. The ruthless dictator is dead right now. But little do they know that much darker days are down the road. After the dictator's death, different groups of Libya, different tribes, different ethnics, try to get together and negotiate about the future of Libya. Who's going to be the next leader of this country? Soon, these negotiations turned into arguments. And sooner than you think, these arguments turned into a civil war. They're all armed. What else did you expect? And who's in charge of this civil war in Libya? Guess who? The ones who armed these people. Right now that we're recording this video, even today, there's a civil war going on in Libya. And people of Libya are still getting tormented. Libya, a country with both wealth and poverty, is still going through tough times, even after the dictator's death. There are still kidnapping, explosions, terrorism attacks, gunfire, all these things are still going on in Libya. Even after Colonel Muammar Gaddafi's death, this is what I want to point out. And all thanks to those who armed these people, they're not really tasting a good life even today. So people of Libya are really missing their dictator, because before the Arab Spring, they were having good life. I mean, once Gaddafi started to reconcile with the world, that was the time of their blooming. But today, it's all about destruction. So that's why Libya is missing their dictator.